So, welcome to part 3 of the jazz bass build. So, part 1 was all about prep, which was painting the body. Part 2 was the assembly, fitting it all together. And this part 3 is all about setting it up. So, how do you make it as playable as possible? So there's a degree of personal taste in all of this, but there's a logical order to the way in which you do this, and there's lots and lots of YouTube tutorials on this. But the basic principle is you kind of start ahead and work down. So it'll be setting the truss rod, the neck relief, setting the nut height, setting the string height using the bridge saddles, then setting the intonation, and finally setting the pickup height. Some science, some feel. I'll crack on with that now. So in order to set the truss rod, so the neck relief, first thing we need to do is to put the guitar in tune. And now the reason for that is when it's in tune, it'll have the right tension in the strings. And obviously with the right tension in the strings, it'll be pulling back on the neck the amount it's going to in normal practice. So what you want to do is set the neck tension, then tune it afterwards, and then discover that it's pulling more than you thought it was going to for that amount of tension. Okay. So once that's done, we've got the right amount of tension in the neck, then we're going to use this is an engineer's straight edge, and what should happen is there'll be a correct, the correct relief is as a slight amount of bend over the first few frets, and then it flattens out. So you can actually hear that by running the straight edge over it, and you can hear that click as it falls off the fret. There, 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 there. And it's still doing it slightly all the way up to the, the 9th fret. So what that says is we probably just don't want to pull back against the strings a little bit, and what that will do is create less bow in the neck. So in order to do that, we're going to tighten the truss rod. So we do that by putting the Allen key into there, and that's about 1/8 of a turn. Do about another 1/8 there, and then check it again. So click, 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 click. And that click's running out now at about the 7th fret. So I'm going to go for a little bit more tension in the truss rod. And that will have affected the tuning, so I'll just double check that again. So we've gone slightly sharp, as you'd expect. And so we'll flatten that off slightly. And then once we've done that, we can check the neck relief again. So now, let's see where we go. So that's gone by about the 5th fret now. So let's see how that looks and feels. And sight a line down the guitar, and you can see, not that you can see on the camera, but it's relatively flat around the area here, and then it's scooping up very slightly over the first 3, 4, 5 frets. So I'm happy with that, and we can move on to the next bit. So the next part of the operation then is to file the nut slots so that the string seats properly in the nut. And what I've got is a set of nut files which are, as you can see, the exact right thickness, diameter, same as the string. Now, the fact this needs doing doesn't mean that the nut's kind of not prepared properly or faulty or whatever. It's simply that, you know, that the man in the factory in Mexico has no idea what strings you're going to be using on your bass when you get it. So the idea is just to file the nut slot there. But how do you know how far to file it? Well, it's actually relatively simple. What you do is you hold the string down at the 3rd fret, which effectively is holding it at the 2nd fret going backwards, if you see what I mean. And then what you're doing is sideways on, so obviously side to line across the neck, just see how much space there is there. You're looking for a little bit of clearance, so it obviously can't be touching, but at the moment we've got, you know, 1.5 mil of clearance, something like that. So yeah, so just enough to kind of, yeah, be able to feel that it's touching, feel that it's moving to touch without obviously touching. So it's really just a question of take a bit off, check it, take a bit off, check it, take a bit off, check it, take a bit off, check it. Now that is probably going to be quite dull to watch because the principle is exactly the same. I'm going to do this for the E string, do the same for the A and the D and the G, and I'll just work my way through that. But I don't think you need to sit and watch me do this for half an hour. So I will crack on with that, and I'll see you when I've finished. But just before I leave you completely on this, there's one thing I just forgot to mention, which is the angle of the file. So the fact that I'm filing down towards the headstock, and the reason for that is to do with the string break angle. So you want once it's all finished, the string to be sitting on this edge of the nut, not that edge of the nut, because if it was sitting on the back edge of the nut, it would potentially rattle in that nut slot and give you kind of unwanted noises. So the angle of attack is down towards the head, like that. Just thought I should mention it. Oh, and just one other thing that I felt I should mention, which is that when you're working on the E string here, you've got very little room to play with. So you're doing these little short strokes, and you can see the dust on the file is just in that area. When you're over on the other side, you've got, you know, a much longer throw of the file, which actually means that you find yourself working through the nut material a lot quicker because you're using more of the file as you go. That being the case, it's easy if you started at this end to take away too much material in between your checks. So I just thought I'd point that out because I came very close to going too far on the D string. Yeah, just thought it was worth a mention. So the next job then is to set the string height, and the way we do this is to measure it at measure the gap at the 12th fret, and everybody's got personal preferences. I go for about 2.5 mil on the E side and about 2 mil on the G side. So that's done with feeler gauge. Now, this is a bit of a maths conundrum. I need to make up 2.5 millimeters. So 0.7 and 0.3 gives me 1. 0.6 gives me 1.6 plus 0.4 gives me 2, and then if I can find a half, there's a half. Right, so just double check that. So I've got 0.7, 0.3, 0.4, 0.5 and 0.6. So if my maths is correct, I've got 2.5 mil there. So what we do then is take that 2.5 mil and check it under here. And at the moment, we are close. We don't have to come too far, but that string could come down slightly. And using the little Allen key that came with the bridge, what we do is if we just wind those out slightly, then the bridge saddle can come down slightly, and then I can check that again, see where I've got to. So that is 2.5 mil. It's just moving the string now, so actually I've gone too far, so if I just wind that back in just a tad, there and there, see where we are, and that's just clearing, which is fine. So try to make sure we're not getting fret buzz. Okay, so that's good. So now, what we need for the G side is just 2 millimeters. So if I take out that 0.5, so 0.6, 0.4 is 1, 0.3 and 0.7 is 1, 1 and 1 is 2. Yeah. It was when I went to school anyway. Who knows what it is these days, right? So I am going to just do the same sort of thing again. I'm going to sight the light under there. I've actually got a huge amount of clearance there, so I can wind the saddle adjuster out a fair bit there to drop the string down. Now it looks like it was up on one side anyway. Let's just do that. Have a little look and feel. But I do know 1 and 1 is 2, and I know that if you love me too, what a wonderful world this would be. Right, so that can actually go down just a little bit more. Getting pretty close actually to the end of the travel of the bridge. Still go a little bit more. And even a little bit more. So we're going to be pretty much at the end of the travel of the bridge saddle there. So let's again check for fret buzz. I'm not talking about that technique from, sorry, the buzz from my poor technique. I'm talking about the string rattling against the higher frets. Okay. Now, how do we set the two strings in the middle? Well, really, what we've got is a radiused fretboard, as most are. So really, we need to sort of maintain the radius that we've got in the fretboard in the strings. So my view on this is you just kind of do it by eye and by feel. So to my way of thinking, the A string is about right, but the D string is looking a little bit high. So I'm just going to bring, sorry, the A string's about right and the D string just needs to go down just a little bit. so basically, as long as it feels right and it's not buzzing, then we're going to be okay. So, just a little feel up and down. Where are we there? There's something there. I know. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Now, obviously, there's nothing stopping us tweaking it again in the future, and you should do this when you change strings anyway, and probably, you know, as that neck's never been under tension before, this will probably settle in over the coming weeks, and I'll probably end up doing all of this again anyway. It's just each time you do it, the adjustments will be just that little bit finer. It's a bit like when somebody borrows your car and you've got to adjust the seat, and you just keep adjusting it until it's just right. It takes you blooming ages. Okay, so that really is setting the string height. But just before I move off of that subject, I've been asked a question about the string gauge sizes. I said in the previous video I play 45 to 105, which is the number of the strings, and as you've seen is also the same as the files. So what that is, in fact, if I bring this to the camera, you might be able to see it a bit more clearly. It's basically a decimal, sort of a decimal fraction of an inch, is that right? So a proportion of an inch decimalised. So when it says 0.045, it's 0.045 inches, and when it says 105, it's 0.105 inches. So I don't know why they don't do that in 64ths of inches or whatever. I don't know, they just always have done. So if you say you play 45 to 105, what you're saying is your 45 G string down to a 105 E string. And the other thing I was asked about was this little block here, which you can pay fortunes for things from luthier supplies to rest your guitar in when you're working on it, or you can simply hack up a block of wood you found in the garage for tuppence, which you can see is what I did. Right, okay, so what we're going to do now is set the intonation, which is about making sure that the instrument's in tune with itself, which sounds a bit odd, but if you played a piano, for example, if you played D, that D, there's only one place you can play that D, so that's it. But on a guitar, you could play that same D there, for example, and of course you need to make sure that all those notes are in tune with each other as you move up the fretboard, and the basically what you've got is the string halfway up its length is the 12th fret, so that's 12 semitones, which is the octave. So you get the octave there, and you get a harmonic at that point. So a harmonic is we touch the string but don't fret it. And what's happening is by just touching the string there, the string which would normally vibrate like that along its whole length is actually vibrating, or like that actually, in two half lengths. But you need to make sure that halfway point is halfway, and that's what these adjusters up here do. Maybe if I can demonstrate that, hopefully you can see on the tuner there. So if I play G, so that is G, that's fine, that's in tune. So if I play the fretted G, actually we're very, very close there. Well, actually, we're just a tad, very close. You can hear, that's the harmonic. It's very slightly sharp when it's fretted, so, and it's difficult because if you press too hard, you're going to go even sharper, so you need to touch it with the amount that you would play it with. So, actually, Yeah, very, very, very slightly sharp. So what we can do is just lengthen the string. We lengthen the string by, I'm going to bring the camera up here actually. So we lengthen the string by moving the adjuster, so winding the adjuster in, which pulls that saddle back very slightly. But it hardly needed anything, so I might have even overdone that. So let's look again. So G, and then fretted. Yeah. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, so how's the D string? So D. Okay, so the D is D, 12th fret. The D is sharp. So D sharp, we need to lengthen the string. Lengthen the string by winding the adjuster in, which pulls the saddle back. And make sure we've still got the D here. And then play the 12th fret. So you can see we're slightly sharp, and you can hear it as well. Slightly sharp. So again, let's wind that adjuster in, which will pull the saddle back. Check we've still got the tuner turned on. Check we've still got a D. Which we have, and then still slightly sharp. So wind the adjuster in to pull the saddle back. Check we've got D still, and then D at the 12th fret. Close. You can hear. And just one adjuster in. I say this out loud every time because I almost have to think it through every time. The amount of times I've started adjusting it the wrong way. Right, we've still got D. Yes, we have a D here. Still very slightly sharp, harmonic. And adjust in, pull the saddle back. Very close, very, very close. Yeah, I'll take that. Okay, so I'm going to do the same thing with the A and the E string. You got the process, don't need to keep showing you it, but yeah, that's the principle. Let's get the guitar in tune with itself. And then the last thing I'm going to do on the setup is just set the height of the pickup. So a bit of guesswork when I put them in, and actually, to be completely honest, it's going to be a bit of guesswork now. So there's no it has to be whatever on this. but generally speaking, I have my pickups about half a centimetre from the string. So just make that adjustment there. And there's no right or wrong on this. It's just personal feel. So actually, I put them in, I've just gone a bit too far, as it turns out. So just backing them out just a little bit. I'm just doing that by eye, looking across the pickup. There we go. So, happy with that. So now, the moment of truth. Is it any good? It works. Right, everything full on. I think I'm quite happy with that. So let's just let's roll off this pickup, full on that pickup. So this is the bridge. And then let's go the other way. So neck pickup. Full on volumes, tone off. Yes, happy with that. Thank you so much for watching.